just sitting there with our signs that said, like, we love Sophie, like, thank you, Sophie, for speaking up. And so we were holding on, just watching the game. Again, like, we were being super great. We hadn't said anything to anyone else. We were being super respectful. We were just holding our signs and cheering for both teams. And this lady, older lady, comes up to us. And she comes up to us, and at first I think she's going to be nice. And she asks, like, what are you guys doing? Something like that. And then it was like, Jesus loves everyone. That's what she told us.
Welcome back to Clark Gaming Who. Before we crack open this enormous story, leave a quick comment below. Should team owners face punishment for screaming at or insulting fans? Tell us where you stand right now. Buddy, what is unfolding before our eyes looks like a complete breakdown of the WNBA's public relations operation, with the league office suddenly trapped in a crisis unlike anything it has dealt with before. Anyone who believed the physical confrontations on the court would remain the biggest storyline of the season needs to think again, because the controversy has now exploded into the seats. This situation includes teenage girls, an intensely divisive political argument, and a powerful WNBA team owner allegedly losing control in front of spectators. Only days ago, on July 28, the Indiana Fever went into Climate Pledge Arena to battle the Seattle Storm. However, the confrontation now dominating the conversation did not take place between the players. It reportedly happened courtside, where Seattle Storm co-owner Celeste Keaton was accused of directing profanity toward young supporters of Sophie Cunningham. The backlash became so serious that the league suspended her, while the Storm organization rushed out an emergency apology in an effort to contain the damage.
This Seattle Storm situation is going very south fast. Now we have other big-time business people being accused and caught on film harassing Indiana Fever fans, and these young ladies held a rally for anti-trans. Now, during this rally, nothing happened. It was calm. But the Seattle Storm co-owner, who has now been suspended, by the way, we're going to talk about that, made it her business to make sure these young ladies have a very, very tough night that night. And that's exactly what she did. Now, I said this once, and I'll say it again. If I'm these young ladies' parents, I'm quickly, in a hurry, talking to legal. We have to sue not only the Seattle Storm, but you have to sue the WNBA for harassment.
Caitlin Clark's team has been dragged into the middle of an overwhelming public relations disaster, while the WNBA scrambles to slow down the anger spreading throughout its fan base. Stay with this video until the end, buddy, because we are examining every side of what has quickly become one of the most explosive executive controversies the modern league has ever faced. Let's get directly into the details. To understand how everything reached this level of absolute tabahi, we must return to the central figure behind the tension, Sophie Cunningham. The collision between Cunningham's public comments and the political atmosphere surrounding the WNBA has developed into one of the most unstable stories anywhere in professional sports. During a major ESPN profile last week, Cunningham walked straight into the center of the debate and made her position unmistakable. She publicly supported rules preventing transgender girls and women from competing in female sports, arguing that young female athletes should not be required to compete against biological males. She presented her position as an issue involving competitive fairness and physical safety. Buddy, the moment those remarks became public, the internet erupted. Supporters and opponents immediately used the comments to strengthen their own arguments, transforming the interview into an international flashpoint that produced passionate approval from one side and furious condemnation from the other.
Always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children, and that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that.
Yeah. Do you see your advocacy on that, like, taking any form going forward?
You know, I don't know. I'm not a very political person, but I do have beliefs. I have morals, and I'll always stand on those and be true to who I am. And I think people are going to take it how they want to take it, but I've never even really said anything about that. And so when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really important to protect.
Okay, you know, great opportunity for the WNBA, right? Because it's like an 80-20 issue. Most Americans don't believe that boys should play against the girls. And you're talking about a women's sport league. That's what you're talking about. Women's basketball. If you let the biological men play, you end up with the movie Juwanna Mann, or alternatively, Lady Ballers. A 14-year-old high school freshman boys starting varsity player at any decent public school in America would torch these ladies. That is just a reality. Okay, that is not sexist. That is called reality. 14-year-old boys all over America are dunking. The WNBA with biological men would just be called the NBA, and the ladies would be called ushers, or at best refs.
By the time the Indiana Fever arrived in Seattle for the July 28 matchup, every ingredient for an explosion was already in place. Before tip-off, a large demonstration formed outside Climate Pledge Arena, where dozens of people gathered in support of Cunningham and promoted a local ballot measure connected to the same political position. The atmosphere around the building was already charged, and several demonstrators reportedly brought their messages through the doors and into the arena. Buddy, the entire situation was waiting for one small spark, and according to the reports, someone connected to the Seattle Storm organization supplied it. That spark allegedly came through an extraordinary courtside confrontation during the game. Two teenage girls were seated in the crowd holding signs that said, "Thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for girls." Rather than simply allowing the young fans to display their message, independent reporters claimed that a woman approached and confronted them. She allegedly told the teenagers they were effing insane, before adding that she hoped Jesus could forgive them for the sin they had committed. What began as a political disagreement outside the arena had now reportedly turned into a direct verbal confrontation involving minors inside the building.
And one of the co-owners of the team came over and blessed them out and used the F word. And so she was suspended. What was your reaction to this?
Well, it's important to know who these girls are and, of course, the setting of where this game took place. It happened in Seattle, the state of Washington. These girls are 16-year-old girls. They're in high school. One of the girls, her name is Annalie Wilson. She's a 16-year-old runner from Washington State who has taken a stand. Why has she taken a stand? Because she has had to live these policies. Actually, Annalie, she placed second at, I believe it was the Kashmir Junior Olympics regional track meet in the 1600. She lost to a boy. Since then, she's had to find herself standing up before school boards, to her peers, and to classmates, and to teachers, and to adults. What she told me was that Sophie's courage has inspired a generation of young athletes. She says that it is such a relief now to know that someone, especially when it comes from a professional female athlete, has their back. And now here she is, as you said, supporting Sophie, and she's being heckled by grown men and grown women, which now to the left, that's considered progressive. It's just sad that young girls, 16-year-old girls, have to be the adults in the room.
Yeah. You know, the young lady, one of the girls that you're talking about, the athlete, she was wearing an XXXY T-shirt, and that's the apparel company that was created by Jennifer Say, who is the gymnast, the former gymnast. And their mission is really just to focus on protecting women's sports. Here's Jennifer reacting to it. Listen to this.
I'm so proud of those two young girls. They're so grateful to have Sophie so loudly and full-throatedly in our court. These young girls have been going it alone, and to have a star from the WNBA stand up and say, yeah, girls deserve their own sports is such a huge win and a vote of confidence for these girls, and they feel like they're no longer alone.
You know, she started that company. You're wearing one of those T-shirts, too, just to protect women. And it goes back to what Sophie said. She said, there's a safe space and love for everybody. Everybody's welcome at my table. Sophie, the basketball player, says this. But she said, I want to support women. I want to make sure it's fair.
Buddy, once the woman's alleged identity became public, the entire sports world seemed to stop. This was not being described as an ordinary spectator losing her temper in the stands. Reports identified her as Seattle Storm minority owner Celeste Keaton, meaning an executive connected to the franchise was being accused of verbally attacking teenage girls because of the signs they were carrying. The scene became absolute tabahi. The girls were reportedly met with repeated boos from nearby Seattle supporters, while some Storm players were also accused of directing thumbs-down gestures toward them from the court. For a league working desperately to expand its audience and strengthen its public image, this was the kind of controversy that could not have arrived at a worse time. Suddenly, the WNBA was facing claims that one of its team owners had harassed young supporters of the visiting team over a politically charged message. League officials could see the narrative growing larger by the hour, and public demands for consequences intensified almost immediately. The pressure became impossible to ignore, forcing the WNBA to intervene before the controversy swallowed even more attention. With its reputation and momentum potentially at risk, the league decided it had to respond forcefully rather than allow the scandal to continue spreading without action.
Walking up to two 16-year-old girls holding a "thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for girls" sign and calling them effing insane. One was in tears by halftime. The girls were backing Fever guard Sophie Cunningham, who said she wants biologically men kept out of women's sports. The Storm apologized once in with public. Cunningham is not sending the two girls gifts. She called Keaton's meltdown truly embarrassing. So Sophie Cunningham is sending the two girls some gifts, man. So I'm guessing Sophie talked about this. I wonder how they find out Sophie sending them girls something. So the owner has been suspended for 5 games. I just feel like 5 games is just not enough. It's just not enough, bro. She should be banned. These was kids. This is like a hate crime in a sense. She verbally abused someone else's children. This is very bad, guys. Like 5 games is not enough. Then y'all didn't release the type of fine. This is why we cannot take this league serious, because they do things like this that make us not want to watch it, bro. Not want to watch it at all. Now, Tuesday Fever game, one of the 16-year-old girls stayed up the night before making the sign, then spent halftime crying courtside. A couple of Storm players gave the girls a thumbs down to their face. A man told them to take out the trash on their way out. The team's apology: everyone who attends a Storm game deserves to feel welcome. Now, Sophie Cunningham, like I stated, did state, well, this has been reported that she's going to send them something, but there is video that has been released of a fan telling these young ladies they are trash. This is a bad look. And this ain't just no rinky-dink person. This is a corporate guy connected to Nordstrom's. Let's watch it. So this is...
On Thursday, the WNBA officially announced that Celeste Keaton had received a significant fine along with a 5-game suspension that would prevent her from attending Storm home games. Think about that for a moment, buddy. An ownership figure was barred from entering her own team's arena for 5 games because the league believed action was necessary to defend its image and address the uproar. The punishment left the Seattle Storm organization publicly embarrassed and forced majority owner Ginny Gilder to issue a fast and carefully worded apology. Gilder acknowledged that the organization had become aware of the comments and apologized, while emphasizing that every person should be able to feel welcomed at a Storm game. At the same time, Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever attempted to create as much distance as possible between themselves and the surrounding controversy. Fever officials and head coach Stephanie White declined to discuss the demonstration supporting Cunningham. A team public relations representative stepped in and said the organization had no prior knowledge of the rally, making it clear that Indiana wanted the conversation redirected toward basketball. That approach was understandable after the Fever had just secured a major 105-95 victory and had no desire to let an off-court political firestorm overshadow what happened during the game.
There's so many people who are coming out with the positive, saying, you know what, finally someone has said something. And I don't really look at either side of those, because I know whatever I say, I'm going to get hate and I'm going to get love. And if I'm going to live by the love, I'm going to die by the hate. And that's just not who I am. I beat to my own drum. And so people are always going to have something to say. You could win the championship. You could be the best at whatever it is. And there's still people who are going to hate on you. And so that's just what this world is. So I'm confident in who I am. I'm proud of who I am. I'm happy being me. And I'm going to continue to be that.
You always had kind of that mentality when it comes to, people saying things, or is that something you've built and learned to adapt over time?
I think I've always kind of been able to, handle that type of pressure, I would say, and the type of eyes and the type of people who have comments. And like I said, there's going to be some negative comments, but there's also a whole bunch of positive comments too that no one really ever, people hate positivity for some reason. I have no idea why, but there's a lot of positive comments too when it comes to that. And so, it is what it is. Like I said, we're all human. We're no one's perfect here. And so I really don't care what other people have to say. I know who I am. My people know who I am. And hopefully I'm doing them proud and making room for young boys and girls in our world to have a better future than we did. I think people are going to take it how they want to take it, but I've never even really said anything about that. And so when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really important to protect.
Do you think, I guess along the line like that, it goes against perhaps some people might say, hey, for the trans community, this could be something that could come back on us or be targeted against us. Like, how do you, I guess, view that sort of critique?
Like I said, I extend love, and I don't dislike anyone. Like, I think there's room for absolutely everyone here, and I think there's room to love everyone. And I truly think when you get people in the same room and you have conversations, you actually have a lot in common with a lot of people. And so I'm there to love. But I'm also there to love biological women, and I think that there are rights that need to be protected. And like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that. But I have never once said I hated the trans community. Like I said, I think there's space for everyone.
Buddy, professional basketball has rarely witnessed a situation quite like this. A national political disagreement moved from television interviews and online arguments into a heated courtside confrontation, eventually resulting in an owner being fined, suspended, and removed from her own building for 5 games, while league executives rushed to control the fallout. The WNBA may have believed it could manage the tension surrounding these issues, but supporters across the country are now demanding stronger accountability and clearer standards. I want your honest reaction in the comments right now. Is a 5-game suspension truly enough when a team owner is accused of swearing at teenage fans? Was Sophie Cunningham justified in using her platform to publicly defend what she believes is fair for women's sports? Leave your strongest, most unfiltered opinion below and tell everyone exactly where you stand. When you want direct coverage of the WNBA stories that mainstream outlets refuse to examine closely, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and activate every notification. This controversy continues to change by the minute, and we are going to follow every new development without backing down. See you in the next one, buddy.